There are moments in life, you can't forget moments that change everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. For me, it all started with a camera and Midnight, our horse. What my mom asked me to do that day still feels like a dream I can't wake up from. And every time I think about it, I wonder, why did I say yes? Growing up on a small farm, it was just me, my mom, and Midnight, our horse. The farm wasn't big or fancy, but it was ours. The morning started with the smell of hay, the soft nickering of Midnight in his stall, and my mom humming while she worked. It felt like we were in our own little bubble, tucked away from the rest of the world. My mom and I had a bond that felt unbreakable. She wasn't just my mom. She was everything, the person I could count on for advice, for comfort, for laughter. When the days got long, she taught me everything I knew about caring for the farm, about working hard, about life. I trusted her in ways I didn't trust anyone else. And then there was Midnight. He wasn't just a horse to us, he was more like family, strong, gentle, and always there when we needed him. I remember my mom telling me when I was little, Midnight isn't just an animal, he's our protector. He's going to get us through the tough times. I believed her Midnight was a constant in our lives, and everything seemed to revolve around him. But as much as I loved our life, there was always something in the back of my mind, a small voice that questioned things I couldn't quite understand. That voice started to grow louder the day my mom came to me with a plan, something she said would help us all. I didn't realize then that it would change everything, but life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. The farm, which had always felt like our sanctuary, was starting to struggle. My mom began staying up later at night, scribbling numbers on a notepad. Her face tense, brows furrowed. I could see the weight of the bills stacking up, the pressure mounting. There were days when she didn't even have the energy to do the chores she used to love. It wasn't just the farm. It was everything. I'd overhear her on the phone talking to someone, her voice lower than usual, trying to sound calm but failing to hide the stress. One evening after a long day, she came to me in the kitchen. I could see the worry in her eyes as she sat down across from me. The air felt heavier than usual, and I knew something was coming. "We need to think of a way to make some extra money. Honey," she said, her tone serious, almost urgent. "Things are tight. We can't keep going on like this." I remember feeling that sinking sensation in my stomach. I hated seeing her like this, hated knowing she was carrying all this weight. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. And then she said it. "I have an idea. You know how much people love animal videos online, right? Midnight's got this charm. He's special. People would love to see him." At first, I didn't understand, but she kept going. "We could film him doing his tricks, maybe even teach him new ones. We could post the videos and start making some money. We'd finally have something that could help us get ahead." I hesitated for a second, but then it all sounded so simple, so harmless. Midnight had always been a natural in front of the camera. I thought it would be fun. Something to distract us from the stress. Maybe even bring in a little moan the next day. She set up the camera by the barn. Midnight was always eager to show off, so getting him to perform some tricks was easy. I laughed as he trotted around, his mane flowing in the sunlight. My mom was practically glowing with excitement, her eyes sparkling with the hope of something better. She was in her element, guiding him, calling out commands, her voice filled with enthusiasm. It felt like a game we spent hours filming. And after a while, I didn't mind. It was nice to see my mom so excited about something again. But there was this subtle shift in her. She started asking for more, a different angle, a certain expression from Midnight. She was pushing for perfection in a way I hadn't seen before. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I figured she was just excited about the idea, about what it could bring for us. But deep down, something didn't sit right. I didn't know it then. But that was the moment. Everything began to change. What had started as a fun idea soon began to feel like something else entirely. The first few videos felt harmless enough. We'd film Midnight performing his usual trick, simple things like trotting around, spinning in circles, or standing on his hind legs. I'd brush him down, smiling as he nuzzled me, and we'd capture his gentle movements. The video editing was basic, nothing fancy, just us, the barn, and Midnight. It felt like a fun little project to help Mom feel better, and I enjoyed it. It made me feel like I was contributing to something that could take the pressure off her, but slowly things started to feel off. It wasn't the content of the videos, it was how my mom started to approach them. At first, it was little things like her asking me to stand in a certain way or move my hands a specific way. When I pet Midnight, I didn't think much of it. She was just trying to make the videos look better, right? I could see how excited she was about the potential of it all, and I was happy to be part of it. Then came the makeup just a little. She said one morning as we were getting ready to film, "It'll help you look more polished for the camera." I thought it was a bit odd. This was supposed to be a farm video, not a beauty tutorial. But I didn't argue. I didn't want to disappoint her. So, I let her put some makeup on me. Just a touch of foundation, some mascara, and a bit of lip gloss. It didn't feel like me, but I figured it wasn't a big deal. My mom smiled approvingly as she finished saying, "It would make me pop on camera." I didn't feel any different, but she was happy, and that was what mattered next. She asked me to wear a dress. Not one of my usual farm dresses, but a light flowy one that felt out of place against the roughness of the barn. I remember standing there in front of her, holding it and thinking this isn't right, but she insisted it'll make the shots with Midnight look better. It'll add elegance. I hesitated, but she was so adamant that I gave in. I didn't want to argue, so I changed into the dress, and as I walked back into the barn, I felt ridiculous. The whole thing felt like a strange mismatch, a farm video that was turning into something it shouldn't have been. But I went along with it, telling myself it was for the best. Over the next few shoots, the requests got more and more specific. My mom wanted me to pose with Midnight in ways I had never considered before. At one point, she even asked me to pretend to whisper something to him in the middle of the shot, making it seem more intimate. It felt wrong. Midnight was just a horse. I'd never thought of him that way, but she pushed for these shots, telling me that they would make the videos stand out. By now, I started feeling uncomfortable in my own skin, like I was performing a role that wasn't me. The excitement I had initially felt began to drain away, replaced with a growing sense of unease. The focus was no longer just on Midnight. It felt like I was becoming the star of these videos, and Midnight was just a prop dot. That's when she handed me the script. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to understand what I was looking at there. In black and white were instructions for specific actions, things I never imagined doing in front of the camera. Cuddle Midnight more intimately. It said, "Make a contact, like you're sharing a secret." I couldn't breathe for a second. This wasn't what we'd agreed on. This wasn't what I signed up for. The line between what was innocent and what was crossing a boundary was becoming harder to ignore. And with each passing day, I felt like I was sinking deeper into something I didn't understand. That's when I realized it was never about Midnight anymore. It was about something else, something I wasn't sure I was ready to face. The more I filmed, the more I began to feel like something wasn't right at first. I tried to ignore it. The way my mom's requests grew more specific, more uncomfortable. She wanted me to act in ways that didn't feel like me, to pretend that the bond one had with Midnight was something different. She kept telling me that it would make the videos more engaging, more real. But every time she gave me a new instruction, it felt like I was losing myself a little more. She told me to stand closer to Midnight, to touch him more intimately. For the camera, she'd asked me to run my hands through his man, almost like I was caressing him longer than I should have, in ways that felt wrong. She wanted me to look at him differently, like I was sharing a secret with him, making it seem like something more than a simple farm video. I remember standing there frozen as she filmed. Midnight was right in front of me, his brown eyes calm and trusting. I should have felt comforted by him, but instead I felt like a puppet forced to follow directions that didn't feel like mine. Each time I stood in front of the camera, I could feel the weight of her expectations pressing down on me, and it was suffocating. It wasn't about Midnight anymore. It was about me, in ways that made my skin crawl. I couldn't breathe. I felt trapped, torn between wanting to help my mom, wanting to make her proud, and protecting my own dignity. The farm was struggling, and she was so determined to make this work. I didn't want to let her down, but the more I gave in, the more I felt like I was betraying myself. It wasn't just the filming. It was the way my mom kept pushing me, kept insisting I act in ways that didn't feel right. I tried to speak up once, asking her if we could just do a simple video of midnight running in the field like we used to. But she brushed it off. No, no, this is the way we need to do it. This is the only way we'll get people's attention. And then came the comments. I remember sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through the feedback from our videos. What I saw made my stomach twist. People weren't even talking about midnight anymore. They were talking about me, my looks, my expressions, the way I touched him. Some comments were worse than others. Once I couldn't bring myself to read out loud, it felt like they had completely forgotten what the video was supposed to be about. Midnight had become a background character to the twisted idea of me they were commenting on. That was the breaking point. Reading those comments, feeling the weight of every word, I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was suffocating in my own skin, like the person I had always been was slowly being erased. All for what? To get views, to make money. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be part of this anymore. I had to stop. But the question was, how could I break free from this? How could I tell my mom that the line she had crossed was too far? The camera had become a tool of manipulation, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. But the hardest part was still ahead, figuring out how to tell my mom everything I was feeling when I knew she wouldn't understand. The breaking point came when I could no longer ignore how much I was drowning in the situation. I had tried to keep quiet to push through, but I couldn't do it anymore. The comments, the way I felt every time I stood in front of that camera, it was all too much. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. So one evening, after another uncomfortable filming session, I walked into the living room where my mom was sitting. The house felt quieter than usual, the weight of the unspoken hanging heavy in the air. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "I can't do this anymore." She looked up from her phone, her eyes wide with confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked, as if she didn't understand. I took a deep breath, the words finally coming out. "This whole thing, it's not right. The videos, the way you're asking me to act, I don't feel like myself anymore. I feel like I'm losing who I am for something that doesn't even feel real." She stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. I could see the flash of frustration in her eyes, but also something else, something I couldn't quite place for a moment. She didn't say anything. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "Eventually, we need the money. This is the only way we can get by. You don't understand. This is for us." Her words stung, but I couldn't back down. "I get it, Mom. I know things are tough, but this isn't the way. It's not worth losing myself over." Her anger flared for a moment, and I thought she was going to shout, but instead she stood up, pacing back and forth. "You don't get it, do you? You have no idea how hard I've been working, how much pressure I'm under. You think I want to do this, but we don't have a choice." I could feel my heart pounding, but I stood my ground. "I know you're stressed. I know you're trying to make things better for us, but this isn't the answer. Not like this." There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice softer. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to help. I didn't realize what I was asking of you." And in that moment, I realized something. Love doesn't mean blind obedience. Love doesn't mean sacrificing your own well-being for the sake of someone else's dreams. I had to stand up for myself, even if it meant disappointing the person I cared about the most. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had made the right choice. Standing up for myself wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I didn't need to lose myself to make things right for the people I loved. The next day, we agreed to stop making the videos. It wasn't a perfect resolution, and things didn't magically get better, but it was a step towards finding balance. I realized that sometimes taking care of yourself is the best way to take care of those around you, and maybe my mom learned that too. It wasn't the end of our struggles, but it was the beginning of something new. I learned to trust my instincts, to speak up when something felt wrong, and to never let anyone or anything take away who I was. And maybe in the end, that was the lesson I needed the most. This experience taught me something I'll carry with me forever: the importance of trusting my instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it's okay to speak up, even if it's against the people you love most. No one should ever feel like they have To sacrifice their dignity or their sense of self to please others no matter the circumstances. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, confronting my mom and admitting that I was struggling. But in the end, it was the only way I could protect myself. And it was a lesson I'll never forget. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt pressured by someone you care about? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories like this one. Your support means everything. Thank you for being here and for listening.